Ready to get rebooted, Cardinals fans?
He settles down, at least in the zone, and does not stop running.
Blake Murphy.
This is the identity for the Arizona Cardinals.
The run defense is just horrendous, and it's been horrendous for the Cardinals for a long time.
And Marcos Labrada.
He's going to bring over his philosophy. It should make it better.
Present the hottest NFL podcast from the country's hottest state.
He should be turning around the logo.
Actually, some breaking news we can cover here. This popped up just about, 6 minutes ago.
It's Redbird Reboot.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans. Welcome in. This is the Redbird Reboot podcast. We are excited, at least, to be able to be now bringing our content to you on TCR. We are on the Cardinal Rule as far as the YouTube page. We want to be able to take a highlight of some of the guys who are in the comments here, like such as Brett talking out at least about Brock Purdy not being there. Good to have you here, Brett. Marcos, we get to talk about a Arizona Cardinals victory for week one. This is exciting, at least, to be able to go out and say, the Arizona Cardinals are indeed ahead of the rest of the NFC West as far as when it comes to playing the Saints. They are ahead of the Seattle Seahawks. The rest of the teams in the division get that win. But how are you doing tonight as we pick up following a close, but maybe we can say a good win by the Arizona Cardinals by just getting out of New Orleans alive?
Well, they've had a rocky start to the season with the exception of 2021 when they absolutely obliterated the Titans and they were not even expected to win that game. So this game being a win is a win in our book, regardless of how it looked. But we've brought this conversation up before about the preseason. We've had one drive of the first team, like reps and whatnot, and it didn't really consist of everybody playing. And now we come out and it just doesn't look like they're even prepared when it comes to like the scripted plays at the beginning of the first half and whatnot, first second quarter, just not having the same type of just not being on the same page. And it seemed like a lot of the scripted plays that we were designing up to that point was just like little give me dump offs or screen tight end screen type of plays that are just easy, high completion, move the chains type of plays, but not the the explosive plays that you're expecting.
Yeah, the explosivity that we did get to see from the likes of one particular Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. was there for basically one play that we got to see. There could have been a second one that went through when it comes to some misses that happened in the game. And the game ultimately ended where you talk about the Cardinals covering the spread. That was the biggest thing, at least, was the Cardinals had one of the biggest spreads of the week. The biggest thing, at least, when it comes to one of the comments we always say is, good teams win, great teams cover. The Cardinals didn't win by a field goal. They did win by a single score. Now, what's interesting about that is most Cardinals fans, if you want to look at it, expected, Marcos, that the Cardinals were going to go into New Orleans and dominate. They were going to blow up New Orleans. Spencer Rattler is a young quarterback, fifth-round pick for the most part. What really was interesting was that the Saints, Panthers are next week, gave them their best shot, it felt like, when it comes down to how the games worked out in the first week of the season. There were 11 one-score games. 4 of those games were by 3 points or fewer. And out of all of the games that were there was about 12 or so games that were a one-score game in the fourth quarter. So only 4 blowouts throughout the entire NFL. Cardinals were not one of them. And a lot of Cardinals fans left this game, I think, Marcos. There was kind of a maybe tale of two halves. The first half, the Cardinals seemed pretty well. Were able to get up 20, I believe it was, over the Saints in the first half. They were up 17 to 10 with the Saints scoring late in the second quarter. Cardinals were able to get a field goal in the second half. Saints matched in the fourth quarter. And it was a lot closer game than we thought. Arizona, on the very last play, had the combination of Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, were able to make that final pass breakup on the ball that was on Rashid Shaheed, I believe, is the one who it was on.
It was a tight end, wasn't it?
That is, which she plays more wide receiver, I think, at least for a lot of when you're talking about how the Saints scheme works for the most part. But yeah, it's something we're going to here be happy to discuss. Let's talk a little bit here, at least with just some of the other comments that are there. Of course, we got Joe with the TCR being able to reach out to us, saying it's great to be on the same team as the two gents of us. We've got Nick L over there in the chat. Good to see you, Nick, for the most part. We are excited to interact with some of you guys a little bit more now that we get to be more on YouTube, a little bit less on our X streaming. We'll get to have a little bit more interactivity with the show. We got Brett Jones talking a bit about the all-22, throwing to some receivers, then running the ball for a sack. And we'll talk a little bit about not throwing to some of the open receivers because game plan and game script, sometimes you miss a guy who's open. Game plan and game script, sometimes you're sending the ball to a guy who's not even in the progression. It seems like he's open. Turns out the play was this side. The guy runs and actually gets open on the non-play side. That's some of the stuff we like to talk about with the film breakdown for the most part here. And of course, Silver Wolf AZ, super excited as we are to be able to be here with you guys today breaking down the Cardinals win over the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, oh my God, Silverwolf is like a day one person. He's been a great supporter, and I just wanted to give him props everywhere that I go to. He's always there liking, he's always there commenting. So thank you, Silverwolf, for being a great part of this community. I like the two comments that we have for the all 22. Just the fact that there's people getting involved, waiting for that all 22 to drop, getting excited, watching their film, giving their own assessments and whatnot. That's awesome, and I kind of wanted to like not help progress this community to do the all 20, to just get into the all 22, but I did want them to get the better understanding that the broadcast view is one thing, but the all 22 shows everything and it doesn't lie when it comes to that. So you guys making those comments about the all 22, getting excited about the all 22, that's awesome. So thank y'all for helping us send this community to not just take the broadcast view for truth and stuff. I think you're on mute.
That I am. Let's go ahead here and talk a little bit about with some of the all-22. I wanted to take a look at some of the touchdown plays that we had, at least with the Arizona Cardinals, with the New Orleans Saints being on the other side. Let's go ahead here, and I'm going to pull up for those of you guys that are watching. We've got our good old NFL Film Pro all-22 that's going to be set up here. So this is the Saints touchdown that we had here. And Marcos, very classic coverage we've seen from the Cardinals. You can see they've got 4 down linemen here, so it's a drop 7. You can tell that they've got trips over to the left. They got it looks like the tight end over to the right. Looks like they're probably playing what I would say is a little bit of we'll see when they snap the ball, at least here.
I don't think it's showing on the broadcast. I think.
Oh yeah, let me add the scene over
There you
here
go.
so you guys can see it. Getting used to the new setup for the most part, a little different from our StreamYard.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got this is the touchdown that the Saints were able to have, at least with Alvin Kamara. You can see that they kind of spread the Cardinals defense out, got some good push up front, and their Adrian Taylor Demerson was not able to get that sack at the very end. I want to show a little bit here when we talk about part of why this game was closer than we thought for the Cardinals was because the Saints were effective at running the ball. They weren't efficient at running the ball. Cardinals did a good job there, but it was a very quick passing game with running the football, keeping the ball essentially out of Spencer Rattler's hands. He played pretty well. This is one of the spots where we're talking about why the game was close, Marcos. This is maybe a negative for the Cardinals, but take a look here, at least on the play, with how the Saints are able to move the Cardinals off the ball.
Got a little bit of bear front going, and they went ahead and double teamed the nose tackle there. I'm not sure who that is. If that's Mustapher.
That'd be Mustapher was double teamed there. And you can see here, this is one of the things we've talked about. Cardinals worked out some linebackers this week. We'll talk about some of that news. But Mac Wilson Sr. is the Mike linebacker. It's up to him to be able to read. And what they do is they do a little bit of a little trickeration there. Looks like he's trying to cover the gap for the hole here. Good read by Kamara. He just splits the hole up right. Adrian's over here. And then Max Melton is when you're talking about when you're playing over on top of the tight end and some of that, you got to be good and stout in run coverage. Good matchup, at least overall here. He does a nice lunge to be able to try to get after it, but it is a touchdown for the Saints. The Saints did, in my opinion, a great job of figuring out some of the Cardinals' weaknesses, which in some cases, at least, I think are something that we've talked about for improvement. They also, in some cases, saw what the Cardinals' strengths were and defensively coached against it, as we'll get into with our film study in a little bit.
Yeah, Mac Wilson was in perfect position to be able to fill in that gap, and the problem was that instead of filling in the gap, reading clear, when you read cloudy, you're supposed to stay away from those gaps. He goes and moves to the gap that's cloudy, that has all the bodies, gets himself out of position, and then Alvin Kamara is able to burst through that gap. That was solely just on Mac Wilson. He needs to do a better job of reading the gaps and stuff.
Yeah, and that's something where we also talk about sometimes you just get a body on a body and it's whatever man wins. Saints did a good job there of spreading teams out to be able to run the ball. It's a very more air raid sort of concept. Something also we've seen with Kellen Moore used with Ezekiel Elliott during his time in Dallas. Let's talk about a positive here. This is the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to go ahead here and make this screen a little bit bigger for. Oh, there you are,
There we
Marcos, a
go.
little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and we're going to move this
There we
scene
go.
up front. We've got a touchdown to Marvin Harrison Jr. This being he tied in, I believe it was Larry Fitzgerald with 9 touchdowns through his first 18 games. That is a Cardinals record. He passes Anquan Bolden, who had 8 touchdowns through 18 games. This is one of those plays where the first time I saw this play, I pointed out and went, Kansas City Chiefs, because this is, for those of you who remember, I believe Travis Kelce plays and other stuff. This is a fascinating little shovel pass that you're able to kind of pull in. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is lined up outside. You can kind of see at least here. This is throwbacks to, if you're a Cardinals fan, 2015 NFC Championship game. But not too. This is not necessarily the shovel pass to James Harrison. This is just a quick, easy mesh concept to Marvin Harrison Jr. over the side. You can say it's mesh because the guys are always going to cross in front of their bodies. And what this does is Kyler's breaking this down, and it looks like it's man coverage. You can see they move, and this is what I love about this, more pre-snap motion. They line up at the line. Kyler normally is not good with pre-snap motion. They said, right, well, this year things are different. You got Zay Jones moving from one side to the other, and you can see how it looks like they've kind of got a man-on-man. They've got what looks to be kind of playing some zone coverage here because he dropped back into the zone. So now what you're going to have is rock and roll the coverage. That's right. So now they're going to see they kind of keep in the man coverage across the middle. Marvin's got his man. Michael Wilson's running across. This is essentially a pick play. Michael Wilson's going to be the one who's going to pick off the other guy who's there. Pretty easy touchdown for the most part. The protection as well holds up very well. Take a look up front. You've got new guard Isaiah Adams in there. You're going to have, of course, Paris Johnson Jr. is going to have, I believe that's Brian Braze is on the other side there. And Kyler's just able to kind of sit calm in the pocket and throw for that touchdown from the 1 yard line. The trickeration play, at least, that's fun to watch, is actually on the next play. But I do want to get one last look here before we move on to that play. It was part of our film study.
Look how well Michael Wilson is able to kind of open up his legs and then to eat up more space for the DB to get around him right there.
Yeah, he looks like he's blocking for a quick second, and then he just runs around like he's looking for his player to go through, and you can tell that Marv is just running across the middle of the screen there to get that touchdown. Tackled instantly, strong hands, pulls it in. The next play, at least, that we have here is going to be that trickeration we talked about. So the shovel pass to Larry Fitzgerald, a shovel pass to Travis Kelce. This is to get the ball involved into James Conner's hands, get him into space, and get him in for the touchdown. Let's take a look at this, Marcos. What are you seeing when Kyler Murray is just about to snap the ball and then Trey McBride moves to kind of see if he can clear out the defense or kind of identify that coverage?
Kind of like a speed out. He's like a speed out going to his right. And then obviously you see Trey McBride leading the charge. I believe he did it at the snap, the motion and whatnot. So they're thinking it's going to go to Trey McBride. And he plants his feet, kind of underpasses it to James Conner because James Conner is expecting that ball. He turns around and just has to truck one guy, and then that's it. Easy touchdown.
Yeah, and it looks like they're aware of some of that it is going to be going to James Conner. Someone mentioned Trey McBride's probably available on the play as well because you see they kind of bring someone around. The linebacker's reading the middle of the play, gets just enough of a block, and James Conner is in there. Now we've got the end zone angle of this, which is a nice look. It is essentially a play action pass where you drop back like you're going to pass. Kyler Murray's running the ball like on an out. Just pitches it underneath. James Conner does the rest of the work. So we are excited to be able to get a little bit more of these plays for you guys as we move forward. Let's go ahead and jump back into some of the new people who've hopped into the chat for the most part, at least with that one. We've got Aaron Van Buren talking about the offensive line being tight for the most part, saying at least that's there. Talking about Melton needs to make a play. That is something that I agree of, like when it comes to teams at finding weaknesses and attacking, cornerback play and tackling is important for the most part. Aaron Van Buren, why is no one remembering the Fitzgerald shovel pass? Well, that was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the Chiefs do this play in 2024 where they do a pitch to Travis Kelce. So, but that is definitely like the first thing I think that you think of for the most part. As Brett said, that there was a shot that McBride had on that play too. Want to reach out again is also to Dana R, also in the chat for the most part. Good to see you, Dana.
Hey, Dana.
Let's go ahead and we can talk, Marcos, about the performances in the game of some of the individual players. So the game started with Arizona. Wasn't necessarily the best as far as for starts because the Cardinals had one first down. There was a sack that Kyler Murray had with Cam Jordan. Cardinals ended up punting. They forced a 3-and-out of the Saints. And then they had an 11-play drive that ended all the way down at the New Orleans 24-yard line. They had a deep pass they tried to Michael Wilson, but there was penalties that popped up. So James Conner was able to get down to the New Orleans 27. They had a couple of quick passes, and then they had a delay of game penalty on Arizona. We've talked about Kyler needing to keep attention, keep the game moving, even call a timeout if you have to. Makes it 3rd and 12. So then he ends up kind of going for Michael Wilson, passes incomplete. They then end up falling behind the Saints, where the Saints drive down the field, are able to get a touchdown. That was the run of Alvin Kamara running around that right guard for the most part. At this point, Cardinals fans are like, this has been one quarter. Cardinals are down 7-3. This is the time where if you're going to be a playoff team, you got to bounce back. And the Arizona Cardinals do exactly that. Everything starts with a 45-yard deep pass from Kyler Murray to Marvin Harrison Jr. That's the deep passing game that we've been looking for, Marcos, ever since the Cardinals drafted Marvin and ever since we saw a ton of failures last year in being able to get those passes completed.
Yeah, I broke this one on my Twitter and stuff, and it's something that I was expecting the Cardinals to do more of, or Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. to do more of, because of the fact that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the type of wide receiver that's going to be a big-bodied, big body, dropping in the basket. He's going to, have his hands down by his hips and whatnot. And he's going to be able to out-physical anybody, especially now that he's gained 11 pounds of muscle. So we'll see the play here as I'm obviously explaining it.
Yep, absolutely. So here we've got the play for the most part. Let me see if I can get that a little bit bigger for you guys. There we go. So this is when you're talking about setting up the deep shots. You've got the safeties at least are lined up in a cover 2, which that's where the Cardinals, when you run the ball effectively, you want to take a look at least for how you're going to play. So Kyler sees the safety is rotating down. So now you know that it's probably going to be one of these guys is going to blitz off the edge. You've got your deep coverage there. So Kyler is able to move one of the guys over. He pulls the safety out of the play. Now, guess what he's got? He's now got one-on-one coverage with Marvin Harrison Jr. with the safety off to the side. He's able to see that with the read. You get Trey McBride releasing up the middle for the most part, but Kyler knows where he wants to go with the ball. He holds the safety in the middle of the field at this point. You got a hole shot right over here. The safety, he's got his hips turned toward Kyler Murray. When we talk about flexible hips, you got to flip the hips to the other side. Being able to have that sort of rotation is what makes a good safety prospect. You'll see Kyler just takes the shot. The safety gets over there too late. And Kyler layers this ball perfectly. He doesn't throw it in too short where he has to come back for the ball, try to get a flag. He doesn't lay it too long, but he gives a more loft on it. That was one thing we mentioned last year, Marcos, is Kyler would sometimes throw the ball on a line. Here, it's almost like a little bit of the moon ball where it just is able to float right into Marvin Harrison Jr.'s the breadbasket, as maybe Ron Wolfley would call it.
The only thing I would say about this throw is that the only thing that I want them to start working on is not just Kyler, it's also Marv, is move a little bit more closer to the number so that way you give yourself space to be able to work that fade route. And the Kyler Murray obviously throwing it to the outside shoulder instead of the inside shoulder. That way it doesn't give you a chance to be able to break up that play. But I like this this attack right here. This was the alert route, which is like, hey, if I got one-on-one on the outside, it's my man versus your man, I'm taking it. That's exactly what they did.
Look how he calls his guy back over to make sure that he pulls the safety down a little bit there. So he actually knows he's going to get the one-on-one out. So that is, like you said, basically going to be a line adjustment. The way that Marvin does this is beautiful. He basically, there's hand fighting, but not enough that he's going to be pushing off to draw a flag. And look at where, instead of running all the way along the sideline like we saw last year, they're running this route, like you said, closer to the middle of the field, not quite along the sidelines. They're able to get that kind of a little bit tighter look. And it gives Marvin the chance to use his tracking ability, athleticism. Part of why we compared him to the great Fitzgerald was the ability to track the ball on deep plays and make those catches over his head. And he does exactly that. Just is able to layer that ball in, sets up the Cardinals at the 1. And then Marvin, of course, gets that next play for the touchdown. And it's one of those things that, honestly, Cardinals fans, it's going to be exciting if that deep passing game is going to be here. Things are going to be very different for Arizona's offense because that's going to pull safeties back, force Arizona to be able to get the run the ball up the middle. And then when teams are trying to be able to attack Kyler Murray in a unique way, there's going to be times where you're going to be able to get middle of the field action to Trey McBride, just laying it in between the linebacker and the safety. Good time if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan if this deep passing game is consistent for this year.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be a burner. It doesn't need to be like a situation where you have somebody running 4-3 burner type of situation. More so, just like you have big receivers that you could throw it where only they can catch it because they're so physical. They can win at the point of attack, or they can high point the ball.
Yep. No, I think it's something at least that we can do. Now, one of the things that we want to be able to go over, Marcos, at least, is the way that the PFF stats came out after this game was pretty interesting. When you're talking about how the box score broke down for the offense, the highest performing and graded player for Arizona was Marvin Harrison Jr. That's something that we've wanted to be able to see. We've seen it at the end of last year. Him taking the leap is something that's been pretty huge. We also wanted to see Trey McBride and Paris Johnson Jr., and sure enough, those are the top players that they have. Some people may want Kyler to be the top graded player the whole game. I think there's been some issues that we'll talk about in the second half there. But as far as the grading system goes, the lowest graded player was Isaiah Adams. Did not have a good day run blocking. Neither did Evan Brown. Those are the two guys that need to be able to have good games in run blocking if the Cardinals are going to be able to run the ball. They pull guards, they move things around, but there is a schematic reason for why I think they had some of their worst days. The other guy, as far as with run blocking, who had the worst day of the bunch was Jonah Williams. So you're talking about this was not a good offensive line game for the Cardinals. They had a special teams mishap where a kick was blocked. Brian Brzee jumped over one of the players. It's something they probably saw on film. And when it came to the third down back area, James Conner didn't hold up as well and being able to pass block, but he was helped because Trey Benson did. And Trey Benson had probably the best run that we've seen for Cardinals players, at least this season thus far. It was fun to be able to watch Trey Benson after a lot of people kind of didn't like the pick a year ago, didn't like what they had seen from him. He showed that speed on that outside burst, getting around the defense to be able to pick up a huge 50-yard gain, which turned out to be a third of Arizona's total rushing yards on the day from that one single run.
Yeah, he needs to run more outside zone and he needs to run more stretch plays and crack tosses because he needs to be in a position where he's either following a fullback on an I formation, running to the outside, so that way he can use that quickness and that ability to be able to just cut back because he's not a good reader he's not a good gap reader. So when he runs inside zone, he constantly gets caught up in the wrong gap, or he goes to a position where it's advantageous for a defensive lineman to be able to basically just cut the through the gap or just penetrate that gap and then get him in the backfield and whatnot. So that guy's an outside zone machine. So just keep doing that with him.
Right. That's something where having him strong between the tackles is important, but when you can do something like this, you're able to see. Now, this is also unique with the Saints. They had a lot of times they would rush 5. We'll break down one of the plays earlier, but there was times where off of the bootleg, the Saints essentially said, Cardinals, you're a run-first team. We do not want you to run the ball on us. We're going to put 6 people in the box, drop back some people in coverage, make sure we're spying Kyler Murray on the bootleg, because we don't want Kyler to have the easy bootleg around the yard. Get that? We'll show one of the plays that I believe resulted in a pressure or a hurry if we can before our show ends tonight. But this is the Trey Benson run. You'll get to see at least here the way that this is set up. So this is going to be pretty simple as far as you've got your 2 guys on the right-hand side are pulling. Trey McBride's down here. You're going to have, I believe that's going to be Elijah Higgins, 84. He's able to get a hand in so that Benson's able to get to the outside. And you got two guys who are taken out at least in the same point of the play. So this is a good job ultimately when we talk about grades and film and some of the other stuff like that. You got a good job that's there at least being done by, I believe that is
Higgins? Or who are
I
you
believe
talking
that's
about?
Isaiah Adams 74, I believe is the
Oh,
one
okay.
there. So you can see here you've got two guys that are coming down, including Demario Davis at least, and Trey McBride is the one actually who takes him down along with 84. So pardon me, I was wrong there. It was the tight ends. Trey McBride, at least right here, 85. Watch the block here that frees him. So you talk about you don't block, you don't get the rock. McBride ends up falling down there, but Higgins finishes the play. Benson has that 4.3 speed we saw from the combine, so he is just gone. The corner, I think number 24 here, runs right into right into number I think it's 74 there, and Trey Benson runs all the way down the sideline, stays in bounds. Good overrun. We'll get a nice, better look at that here in a second. Oh, it was, I believe, Michael
Yeah,
Wilson.
96 is a hustler. Look at him. He's on the right side of the
All right.
formation. It still ends up making the tackle. That's insane. He's a defensive lineman.
Yeah, and number 96 for the Saints is actually Carl Granderson, an all-time, former, I believe it was Pro Bowler for them. They've got a lot of veteran guys on that line for the most part. So,
Come on,
yeah,
man. He's
great
got that
play
4.3
there.
speed and he gets caught by a defensive lineman.
Yeah,
And
and that
either
was
way,
something that Calais Campbell actually even mentioned that. So there was a whole thing that Calais Campbell talked about with I've got the tweet I can pull up here at least with where he said you got caught by a defensive lineman. So he said that they were, yeah.
they would give
Calais
him
Campbell
crap.
interviewing said we had to give a hard time because he got caught by a D line. Said great run, great vision, great timing, great block, all of that stuff. But yeah, Calais at least getting after him. We remember that there was, I believe, Calais Campbell on one play had a pick six. He got tackled from behind just before the end got to the goal line.
Oh,
They said the
man.
offense was giving him a bunch of crap for all of that. So fun to see the young player stand up and be able to start making plays. So Marcos, let's go ahead and greet some other people that we have here overall within the rest of our chat here for the most part. Brett Jones talking about that's great. They've got open options at the red zone. I agree. Having multiple options in the red zone is something that we talked about. Even if the offense goes through Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, they're designing plays for Marvin now that last year we said it would have been a fade route to Marvin Harrison Jr. with a one-on-one jump battle outside. This year, you're running a mesh concept to free him up and get him open. Let's do more of those sort of plays for the most part. Dana also talking about leaving a like on the Redbird Reboot channel as well.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
guys, we're going to be graduating from our YouTube channel in a couple weeks. So for now, they'll be streaming on both channels, but we'll eventually be pushing people to Jokomo's The Cardinal Rule channel as we're building up this network of a whole bunch of new podcasts together. So thank you for that with the Redbird Reboot. Brett Jones on that 45-yard pass play. Best pass we've seen from Kyler in a while. Totally agree. Late last year, there were some good ones to Marv. I think of that end zone throw against the Dolphins, but that 45-yard one was layered in beautifully. We've talked about with AZ Jace, the isolated route outside the numbers, best at where D-Hop, AJ Green were here. Totally agreed. That is Kyler's bread and butter. Get those guys isolated, have it where you're able to get a little bit of air underneath, still get it pretty direct, and you're able to watch the speed of Marvin Harrison Jr. and some of the ability to get off of coverage too. He did some hand fighting, but was not getting locked up there as well. Brett Jones saying, thank you for going through some film. Awesome. We got Steve in the chat saying, let's go Cards here for the most part. And then let's do a stop here with, we got SB 1993 said, stood, but did not due to penalty and did have a huge hit, which for me with my Chris Olave and how despite my family being Michigan fans, I do love me some Ohio State wide receivers. Caused my heart to skip a beat when he just laid out Chris Olave. They brought him over to the sideline. But seeing that sort of defensive back make a play like that in the run game of essentially because you're throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage. It felt like in some ways we've seen Patrick Peterson for years, Marcos, who great coverage corner, could get interceptions, great ball hawk, not so good against the run, not so physical. We've seen Budda Baker, who hasn't gotten his hand on a lot of balls, has been a physical run defender, has been good in coverage, but maybe not the same sort of elite area in coverage. It kind of feels like Will Johnson is almost a blend of putting both of those guys together, which is crazy to think about, but that is something where it seems like the Cardinals, which a lot of fans knew, found a gem. It just was, are they going to take a risk on the health? And so far through one game, remember, it's been one game, folks, it does seem like that taking a chance on him has been rewarded.
Yeah, and I'm sure glad they took him in the second round. By the way, that hit was nominated for Shot of the Week with the Bootleg Football Podcast. They always do. They have these nominees where like somebody either gets cracked, gets basically knocked to their butts, or just a great play gets nominated. Will Johnson, obviously, on that screen blow up, was nominated because that was a really good read and a really hard hit by a rookie who was playing his first game in his career.
I know it was super interesting to be able to see. Let's see if I can get that pass pulled up here for you guys so you can take a look at that interception. That was actually, I think these are going to be more deep, incomplete passes. So let's pull this one up first for you guys. We have a. Oh, let me make sure I can get Marcos back over in here for you guys as I share my screen. There we go. So this is the first overall deep incompletion that we were able to see. So this is a Will Johnson, number 0, lined up over here. You can see that they're flagging it. He's got one-on-one coverage over the top.
I don't
They're
think
trusting Will.
it's not
Oh,
showing.
let me add that here. There we go.
There we go.
Will Johnson being a straight dog. There is that pass breakup. So you can see here the receiver's motioning to the quarterback. Here he's got, reminded a
I'm
bit.
in the way.
He's motioning that he's got one-on-one coverage. Yeah, I'll get that fixed here in a second.
There we go.
There we are. Yeah, so we've got still the same problem as before. I'll put us below here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so we've got one-on-one coverage at least over there on the outside. We'll show this here from the end zone view, which we'll do a little bit more of just seeing that pass get broken up by Will Johnson here. We've got Spencer Rattler is backing up, sees he's got the one-on-one coverage, just throws kind of that outside the numbers look. And Will gets his hands up late, knocks the guy over, does it timing-wise, no flag. The way that it works, and I've told people this all the time, is when you have a play like that where the defender is not looking back at the ball, sometimes they'll throw the flag. But if you get your hands in late just as the ball arrives, you know the timing, the time that the ball is going to get there, studying the receiver, you're able to get away with breaking up that pass on those plays, and that's exactly what Will Johnson was able to do there, Marcos.
Yeah, Will Johnson was reading the wide receiver. He knew once he took off and his feet and he's reading his hips, but if he sees his feet taking off from the ground, he knows that ball's coming his direction. So he does the smart thing, puts his hands straight up to try to create a barrier, and he got a feel for that ball and was able to break it up.
Yep. So with Will Johnson and that interception, Will Johnson was, when we take a look at the defensive side of the ball, he was the highest graded defender for the Arizona Cardinals. That's something that I think cannot go unnoticed, Marcos, when it comes to, there's our screen right here. Let me zoom in a little bit here for you guys who are watching there. We're not able to maybe see that. We've got Will Johnson at the top, followed by draft pick Adrian Demerson and the 1-year signing of Akeem Davis-Gaither. Then, of course, you've got two of your leaders there in Budda Baker and Josh Sweat. 4 pressures, no sacks for Josh Sweat, but we did get to see at least a little bit of sacks that were kind of in the making that Spencer Rattler was able to do a good job of. We also saw, Marcos, there was a quick passing game to try to get the ball out fast from Spencer Rattler, avoid getting there in the rush, and then on the other side of the ball, the Saints were going with Brandon Staley's defense. We don't want the easy passes, the bootlegs. We're going to load up a bit of the box, force Kyler Murray to throw. In the first half, Kyler would make them pay. In the second half, there was a couple of pass plays that popped up that weren't quite there. And that's where I wanted to focus at least on the pass play, at least that most people have talked about, which is the long pass play and incompletion to Marvin Harrison Jr. That was, I believe, let me go ahead and pull this up here as the incompletion. Let me pull that up here in a second. In the meantime, at least we can greet some people over here in the chats who are popping up. Saltiest Gaming saying we're doing a great job breaking down the game. Thanks so much here. Got Calvin talking about the MHA doubters that are here for the most part. There we go. We had interception turned on. I'm going to scroll down here for the Kyler Murray pass to Marvin Harrison Jr. That was over the middle. Yeah, I believe it was, let me pull up the incomplete, I believe is what passing outcome would be here. Marvin Harrison Jr. for 11 yards. We are going to need to pull up the second page. Let's go and flip this into the third and fourth quarter. That should be easier to be able to find that. We've got the Pass attempt was not complete. It was a long pass attempt, I believe, and third and long to Marvin Harrison Jr. Let's go ahead here. And this is the one pass. Sorry, folks, we're taking a little while time here, but this is the deep incomplete pass down the middle to Marvin Harrison Jr. This is the one that Kurt Warner wanted to break down. So you're talking about the Cardinals here are lined up. You got two guys outside. Michael Wilson comes inside. You got what looks like a quarters coverage that's back here for the most part with cover two. Kyler snaps the ball, and he throws that ball to Marvin Harrison Jr., gets behind the defense, and it's a miss. So now here's the question, Marcos. A lot of people wanted to know, did Kyler miss the throw? Did Marvin Harrison Jr. run the wrong route? Did the defender bump him? And the answer to that is, I think it's probably a little bit of all three. Kurt Warner did a great job being able to explain and defend Kyler Murray overall. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about some of that as far as what Kurt saw on this play.
Yeah, he was talking about how his son plays college football and that wide receivers can get redirected at the top of their routes just by the smallest of bumps and whatnot, and they could just flatten it up. And by flatten, it just means like going horizontal. And what happened was he ran to the top of his route. Marvin Harrison Jr. is who I'm talking about. And running up the seam, he gets a little bit of a bump by the safety on this play. Kind of has to redirect his route and takes a half a yard away from being able to be in good position to be able to make that play and make that catch and whatnot. So it would have been a touchdown. The problem is that like when he ran to the top of his route and he got bumped and redirected, he no longer had the ability to be in the right place at the right time.
Right.
So that should have been honestly a pass interference. And it wasn't called pass interference, obviously, but this should have been.
Right. And that's one of the cases, at least, where when you're talking about bumping the guy off of the route, one of the things that comes up with players is that football is a game of inches in a lot of ways. Like, it's a game where a lot of times the difference between a completed pass and an incomplete pass is a lot smaller than you think it's going to be. So here, like you said, he kind of bumps him a little bit off. But what's cool about this play is you can argue, and I was actually breaking this down with some of the group text where we've got me, some other people, Seth Cox, Jess Root, Johnny from PHNX. We're all kind of talking, was this a miss from Kyler? And the answer, at least that he had said, was the throw from the three wasn't inaccurate at all. So Kurt Warner, his explanation was, well, you never cross the middle of the field on a middle route if there's two safety D. You've got to stay on the front side. And that kind of makes sense. If we take a look at the film here, if he makes it to the back side of the play, so look at the hashes, and I'll look at where Kyler's playing with two deep safeties. If he makes it to the other side of the hashes, he's going to lead him right into where that other safety is going to be. Now, maybe that safety is not going to be there for the most part, but the way that they're training is to leave it slightly inside for Marv to be able to pick that up. The other thing that's unique about this is what I said was, well, maybe Kyler needed to layer the ball a little more, put a little more loft, make Marvin could come back to it because he gets behind the defense. The way that they're teaching this is that this is a 98-yard touchdown if you do it right, because he's got a step behind the defense. You want to throw that ball there. If you throw it short, not only is it possible that the defender comes back up and has a chance to make a play on the ball if you put loft, but you're also going to potentially leave all of this yards after catch. And like right here, you've got the play exact. Marv is behind everybody on the play. You want to give him a shot to get those yards after the catch. That's the way the play has been designed. Of course, it ends up being a little bit behind him because of the play side being bumped off of the route. The end zone angle does a good job, I think, of showing that bump here, Marcos.
He also had a really clean pocket, but I think he had a little bit of a bad, obviously he had a bad experience against the Los Angeles Rams being in the end zone, so right. He's not trusting his timing on that.
Right. That's something else, at least with the timing for each of those. So this is where when I looked at this angle, I thought, all right, well, maybe you could layer the ball a little bit more. The pass protection was picked up. There's still a guy who's going to get after Kyler. He throws the ball right to the spot where it's supposed to be on the inside of the hash. And like we saw, there was a little bit of that bump on the previous one that got Marv. Instead of it being a step back, the ball just gets there a split second where it's behind him. He even gets a hand on the ball. But that was one of those plays, at least, where if you're trying to get the ball out of the end zone, the goal is not to just throw the ball with what you see, but it's, here's the play. We've coached it up. We've practiced this play. Now you got to go out and execute it against that defense. And that's something that the Cardinals, at the end of the day, they're going to learn from this. And I think that it wouldn't shock me if we see more of these sort of deep passing plays that pop up. Like Kelvin said, a lot of MHJ doubters that popped up. We will see how that goes for the most part. Marcos, we're going to probably wrap up a little bit soon. We know there's another show coming up tonight here on Joe's channel, so we want to make sure that we're getting time. A little bit of a shorter show. Were there any other comments or thoughts that you had? Because ultimately, I think a lot of Cardinals fans were hoping for a blowout. What we received was a Cardinals team that was able to get the win at the very end of the game with that final pass play. And I think at least a lot of Cardinals fans were ultimately maybe not disappointed with the way that the final outcome was. But at the end of the day, I think that you talk about where the Cardinals are set up now. They play the Panthers, who lost a blowout game to the Colts not the Colts, excuse me, lost a blowout game last week to the Jaguars. We're talking about them playing a Niners team that is depleted, like we've talked a little bit, at least at the start of the show, Brett Jones mentioned. Brock Purdy might be out for multiple weeks. You might have a chance against the Niners. The Seahawks looked like they had a difficult time against that background, against the backups of the San Francisco 49ers. Feels like this is one of those spots where the Cardinals have a huge opportunity to be able to actually come away with a good start to the season if they can follow it up with a win against a longtime rival in the Panthers.
Yeah, if we can get past the Panthers always seem to have our number. So that's number one right there is just getting that one win. After that, we got a good opportunity to at least have like a 3-1 to like a 4-0 start, which would obviously give us the ability to stack those wins early in the season and expect that to the season to taper off or kind of come back down when the schedule gets harder. One of the things I also wanted to mention about last week's game, I haven't been able to see the entire defense or the entire offense, but one of the things I was really impressed with was Jordan Birch. I wasn't 100% like on Jordan Birch. I thought that was a reach. A lot of pundits had talked about that there's better players. The Cardinals could have gone. So at this point, getting somebody who's like a speed rusher at 270, 295 pounds, these offensive tackles are not expecting that because he's lined up on the outside on a 2-point stance, and he's showing more speed than what he gives off. So that's number one. All the snaps that I saw thus far of Jordan Birch, the defensive line was holding their blocks and doing a really great job. Not sure if that had to do with the rotations, but it was very impressive seeing these guys hold their blocks and being able to beat their one-on-ones. And one last thing, Max Melton had himself quite the game. I think he had allowed the fourth least amount of yards of separation, and obviously in last week's game and whatnot. So
that was a question. People had a question about Max Melton this year. There was even questions on the Will Johnson interception, at least, where Max Melton was the guy who had the penalty, and it was a little bit of a bump. Like, I was one of those penalties where people said it's away from the play. It was something that should not have probably ended up being. Excuse me here real quick. Let me go ahead here and make sure that the volume of these plays is not necessarily going up at the same spot for the most part. But yeah, here. So I'll pull this up over here for you guys to watch on the channel. This would be at least the Will Johnson interception. So you'll start off with Will Johnson at the bottom of your screen there. You can see he's got one-on-one coverage with the flag.
I can't see it.
Oh, yeah. Let me go ahead here and click add to scene. There's a lot of buttons we get to click. This is Will Johnson at the bottom of your screen here, guys, that is being highlighted. You can see the little flagpole, at least, that Shaheed's going to have a deep passing playability. Will just stays back, at least in the zone coverage, reads the ball as it's in the air, and gets a quick, easy interception. He had one of the highest graded opening debuts for a player. I'm going to play this one more time with the big screen so you guys are able to just see the interception in all of its glory with Will Johnson there. This is one of those plays where you watch that, you're like, oh, that looks like something Patrick Peterson would have done. And he's in his first game as a rookie. This is a guy who's a top 10 sort of talent that fell to Arizona in the second round. And depending on how healthy that knee is, Marcos, there's a lot to look forward to if you're a Cardinals fan.
Absolutely. His stickiness and Will Johnson being a great zone corner and just stacking on top of the receiver and then following the ball after that and not paying any attention to the receiver so that you don't get lost in tracking the ball and getting an interception. That's a veteran move.
Yep. No, absolutely. That's something that is super cool to watch. At least one of the most impressive debuts that we've seen from an Arizona Cardinals rookie in quite some time. Well, folks, that'll just about wrap it up for us. We are going to finish with one final play, which is going to be the play of the game with our film breakdown. This is going to be the play where the ball was jarred loose by Buda Baker. This was at least the one play that probably determined the outcome of the game more than any other. Saints could have gone for two after this and been able to just walk off with a win if they get that 2-point conversion. So here you're going to have at least your linebackers in coverage with Jalen Thompson as the safety. They throw that over the middle, and you can see here that the way that it gets broken up is last second, Jalen Thompson is able to just knock the ball free, and that saves the day for your Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, they went 3 deep on that coverage, and they were trying to do one-on-one on to the receivers on the outside. So they were not really so much on islands. They had a support over the top, but yeah, that's a great
Yep.
that's a great
And
pass
this is
pickup.
where we talk about football, and football violence is something Jonathan Gannon preaches. What more, as far as football violence, can there be than watch Buda Baker here on this play? Once the ball is thrown, look at where Buda's standing here. The ball gets caught. Buda just goes and lowers the shoulder and is able to knock the ball free with Jalen Thompson pushing at the other end. So you get in a hit on the player. Jalen Thompson keeps hitting at the ball, doesn't give up on the play, and they end up jarring the ball free. And the Cardinals, after that next fourth down play that goes outside, I believe that's going to be this one here, was incomplete. That ended the day for the Arizona Cardinals with a win in New Orleans. This would be, I believe, that targeting play was outside. Just kind of a little rubber out play thrown out of bounds. Adrian Taylor Emerson had solid sticky coverage, at least throughout that, which is fun. You get to watch him actually right back here. He reads through, sees that he's got to be able to get onto the other side of the player, stays in play. He would have been in a spot to knock the ball down and play, watches it instead. Just overall, not the best throw for the most part, but it is the throw that ended the game. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to have an awesome amount of people that are going to be here following the Cardinals this season. We're super glad we get to bring you our content here. Let's go ahead and say goodbye and say farewell to a couple of people there. Brett Jones said Mad Max was great. And then Jalen Thompson stripped the ball, not Buda. Yep, that was part of where Buda came in with the hit. Jalen was able to then take advantage of that to swipe it out for the most part. We've also got Calvin talking about week 2 is up next. Go Cardinals. A win is what matters for the most part. And we have Cardinal Rule. Joe Como is going to send us out talking about we hop over to the Bird and Goal podcast is right after this, guys. So don't go anywhere. Stay in that channel. Bird and Goal is going to be up next. Guys, this has been us at the Red Boot Reboot. We are here now with part of the Cardinal Rule network of podcasts. And we've just gotten through game 1. You've been rebooted, so it's time for us to log off. Make sure you're following Joe's YouTube channel and follow us with me and Marcos on X as well.
Absolutely. One more shout out. Good job, ADG. Good game.
Good game to ADG indeed. Thank you guys so much. At least we'll end our broadcast here. Go Cardinals. We'll catch you guys. If not at the end of the week, we'll catch you after the Panthers game. So long.